I sold my car to help my wife finish her business degree and chase her dream job. But the night she claimed to be at a team dinner, her credit card exposed a night built on betrayal. Before watching the video, please tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? My name is Ryan Porter, and I am 35 years old. This is the story of how I found out the woman I loved most was living two lives, one with me and one with him. For most of my adult life, I believed love meant sacrifice. When Emily and I first got married, she was still finishing her business degree. I worked double shifts, mornings at the warehouse, nights doing deliveries, just to cover her tuition. I remember the pride in her eyes when she said, "You're the reason I'll make it, Ryan." Those words were my fuel. I wanted her to shine, even if I had to dim my own dreams to make it happen. When she finally graduated, we celebrated with cheap champagne and a broken couch in our small apartment. I didn't care about money. I cared about moments. Not long after, she got a corporate job at a marketing firm, the kind of position she'd always dreamed about. I watched her confidence bloom. Expensive heels, new friends, business dinners. She was stepping into a world I helped build. I couldn't have been prouder. But with her success came changes I didn't see coming. She started spending longer hours at the office, claiming she needed to prove herself. The woman who once called me during every lunch break now barely answered my texts. Our conversations became shorter, colder. She laughed less with me and more at her phone. When I asked what was wrong, she said, "You wouldn't understand the pressure." I told myself it was stress, that she just needed time. One Friday, she came home later than usual. Her eyes were distant, her tone sharp. "We had a team dinner," she said. It ran late. I smiled, trying not to sound insecure, but something about her felt different. Her perfume stronger, her laughter forced. I brushed it off, convincing myself I was imagining things. Love makes you blind, but denial makes you comfortable. The following weeks, that distance only grew. She started locking her phone, guarding her laptop, and dressing differently. Not in a bad way, just for someone else. When I told her I missed her, she smiled faintly and said, "You're being dramatic." That night, I lay awake beside her, wondering when the warmth between us had turned into ice. Still, I kept believing we were fine, that hard times come and go. After all, she was my wife, and I was the man who gave up everything for her dreams. What could possibly come between us? I didn't know it then, but the truth was already written, not in her words, but in her credit card statement. It was a quiet Friday evening when she mentioned it again. Another team dinner. She said it casually, like it was routine now. "We're celebrating closing a big deal." She smiled, avoiding my eyes as she fastened her earrings. I tried to sound supportive, but something in my gut twisted. The words team dinner suddenly carried a weight I couldn't ignore. She looked stunning that night. Red lipstick, a dress I'd never seen before, and heels she once said were too fancy for work. I watched her leave, smiling for everyone but me. The sound of the door closing felt heavier than usual. I told myself to stop overthinking, to trust her, to remember the years of love and loyalty we shared. But that voice inside me, the one I'd been ignoring, whispered that something wasn't right. Hours passed. The clock hit 9, then 10, then 11. No messages, no calls. When I finally texted, she replied, "Still with the team. Don't wait up." That should have been normal. But the way she wrote it, detached, almost cold, made my heart ache. I turned on the TV to distract myself, but every laugh track felt hollow. I couldn't shake the image of her smiling across the table, but not at me. She came home close to midnight. Her cheeks were flushed, her perfume thick enough to fill the room. I asked how it went. "Good," she said quickly. "Just tired." She didn't look tired. She looked satisfied, as if she'd lived a night I wasn't part of. When I reached out to hug her, she flinched slightly before forcing a smile. "You smell like smoke," I said softly. "Someone was smoking nearby," she replied. That answer cut deep, not because it was wrong, but because it was rehearsed. The next morning, I noticed a faint mark on her neck. My stomach dropped. I wanted to ask, to scream, to demand the truth, but fear held me back. Fear that I already knew the answer. Instead, I asked how the project was going. She smiled, pretending everything was fine. I played along. I smiled too. Two actors sharing one stage, pretending the script hadn't already changed. That day, something inside me shifted. I started noticing every inconsistency. Her late-night emails, her locked phone, the mysterious girls' nights that didn't exist before. Each detail was a small cut, and by the end of the week, I was bleeding trust. Still, I tried to convince myself I was wrong, that she wouldn't betray the man who built her dreams. But deep down, I knew. The version of her I loved was fading. and in her place stood someone I couldn't recognize. Someone with secrets, excuses, and a heart no longer mine. That night, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't accuse her without proof, but the next time she lied, I'd be ready to catch her. A week later, I sat at the kitchen table sorting through bills and receipts. Emily was in the shower, humming a tune that sounded far too light for someone stressed about work. I smiled faintly, trying to focus on the numbers. But then, one statement caught my eye. It was from our shared credit card. Our new charge I didn't recognize. It wasn't groceries or utilities. It was a luxury restaurant downtown, one that required reservations weeks in advance. The total? $386. My pulse quickened. The date matched the night of her so-called team dinner. I wanted to believe it was legitimate, that maybe she'd paid for the group, but something didn't fit. The transaction details listed 2 entrees, 1 dessert, 1 bottle of wine, 2 people, not a team. I felt my hands tremble as I stared at the screen. The room suddenly felt colder. I scrolled further, hoping to find another charge. Maybe an Uber for several passengers, maybe something to prove it wasn't what I feared. But there was nothing, just that 1 dinner for 2. I tried to breathe, but the air felt thick, heavy with betrayal. When she came out of the shower, I asked, "How was that team dinner last week?" She smiled easily, wrapping a towel around her hair. "Oh, fun, just the usual work talk." I nodded, my eyes fixed on hers. "Who paid?" She hesitated for a moment, just a flicker, then said, "The company covered it." I felt something snap inside me, quiet, invisible, but final. That night when she went to bed, I pulled up the restaurant's website. The reservation system still had the name Emily Porter listed for that evening. Party of 2. The second name wasn't visible, but I didn't need to see it. I already knew. The truth wasn't a mystery anymore. It was a wound, open and bleeding. I sat in silence for hours, replaying every memory, every sacrifice, the long nights, the extra shifts, the car I sold so she could have her dream job. All of it felt like a cruel joke. I had built her success brick by brick, only for her to use it as a bridge to someone else. The pain wasn't just in the cheating. It was in the lie I'd been living, the blind faith I'd mistaken for love. When I finally crawled into bed, she turned toward me, half asleep, whispering, "Love you." My throat tightened. I couldn't say it back, because the woman lying beside me wasn't my wife anymore. She was a stranger wearing her face. And as I stared at the ceiling, one thought repeated in my mind like a drumbeat. If love is blind, then betrayal is the light that burns your eyes open. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed you like this? Comment below. The morning after discovering the credit card charge, I sat across from Emily at breakfast. She was scrolling through her phone, sipping coffee, humming softly, as if nothing was wrong. My chest burned with questions I didn't want to ask, but I couldn't keep pretending. I looked at her and said, "Em, can we talk about that dinner?" Her eyes flicked up for a second, then down again. "What dinner?" she asked, too casually. I could feel my pulse racing. "The one from last Friday, the restaurant downtown." Her expression froze for half a second before she smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, that," she said, setting her mug down. "It was just me and a client. Company stuff?" My stomach twisted. "A client?" I asked quietly. "Just one client then?" Her fingers tightened around the cup. "Ryan, why are you questioning me? It's work." Her voice sharpened. I nodded slowly, pretending to accept it, but her reaction told me more than her words ever could. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing beside me. Every inhale felt like a lie, filling the room. I kept replaying our conversation in my head, every pause, every nervous glance. She was hiding something. I was sure of it now. I needed proof, not assumptions, not suspicion. Proof that could end the guessing once and for all. The next day, I checked our phone bill. Her work dinners were always followed by late-night calls from a number I didn't recognize. I searched it. The name came up instantly. Daniel Roberts. I remembered her mentioning him once, a junior on her team. She said he was ambitious, but inexperienced. Now I knew he was something else entirely. That evening, I confronted her again, keeping my voice calm. "I saw the restaurant bill," I said, "and the phone calls, every night." She froze. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Then, after a few seconds, she sighed heavily. "You're overreacting," she said. "Daniel just needed advice. He's going through a breakup." I almost laughed. Her tone was soft, but her story was paper thin. "At midnight?" I asked. "Over wine?" She glared at me, her eyes flashing with guilt and anger. "You never trusted me," she snapped. I stared back, my voice steady. "I trusted you more than I trusted myself. That was my mistake." Her jaw tightened, and she stormed out of the room. The door slammed, shaking the walls. But what shook me most was the silence that followed. For the first time in our marriage, I knew the truth, even if she hadn't said it out loud. She didn't love me anymore, and worse, she didn't respect me. That night, as I sat alone, I made a silent promise. The next move wouldn't be hers, it would be mine. And when I made it, she'd never see it coming. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Emily was still asleep, her phone resting on the nightstand beside her. My heart pounded as I reached for it, my fingers trembling. I wasn't proud of what I was doing, but trust had already been buried. I unlocked it using the code I'd memorized years ago, our anniversary date. A cruel irony. I scrolled through her messages. Most were harmless, work threads, group chats, reminders. Then I saw it, Daniel Roberts. The message preview alone made my chest tighten. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. My hands shook as I opened the thread. There were dozens of messages. Flirtations turned to confessions. Confessions turned to plans. Photos, emojis, hotel receipts, and words that no husband should ever have to read. My vision blurred as I scrolled. He still doesn't suspect a thing. You deserve better than him, Em. Soon I'll tell him, she wrote. And he replied, don't. Let him keep paying the bills until we're ready. I dropped the phone. My body went cold. I couldn't breathe. I walked to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and stared at the stranger in the mirror. That man wasn't a husband anymore. He was a fool who'd financed his own betrayal. Every sacrifice, every late shift, every dollar saved had funded her affair. She wasn't just lying to me, she was using me. When Emily woke up, I was sitting at the table, her phone unlocked in front of me. She froze when she saw it, her face drained of color. Ryan, I can explain, she started, but I raised a hand. Don't, I said quietly. You've already said enough to him. Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. I'd seen her tears too many times, and this time I knew what they were worth. Nothing. She tried every excuse she could think of. It was just emotional. I made a mistake. I felt lonely, but none of them mattered. She had crossed a line you can't come back from. I told her I didn't want explanations. I wanted honesty. She lowered her head and whispered, I love him. That sentence broke something inside me that would never heal the same way again. I stood up, my voice calm but final. Then go. Be with him. She begged. She cried. She even reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I walked out the door, leaving her standing there, shaking, speechless, and suddenly powerless. As I drove away, I realized betrayal doesn't just hurt. It changes you. It strips away your innocence, your softness, your belief that love alone is enough. I wasn't sure who I was anymore, but I knew who I'd never be again, the man who believed her lies. After that confrontation, the house fell into silence. Emily tried to talk, but I was done listening. Every word that left her mouth sounded empty, rehearsed, and meaningless. I packed a small bag that night, not because I wanted to leave her, but because I needed to find myself again. The next morning, I went to the bank. I closed our joint account, moved my savings, and canceled every card we shared. I didn't do it out of anger. I did it out of survival. She had built her comfort on my sacrifices. That ended now. When I returned home, she was waiting at the door, her eyes swollen from crying. You can't just take everything, she said, her voice trembling. I already did, I replied quietly, walking past her without another word. Over the next few weeks, I stayed with a friend across town. I found work at a small construction company. Long hours, honest labor, no pretense. Every day, I came home tired, sore but free. The pain was still there, but it began to feel different, less like heartbreak and more like healing. For years, I'd built a life around her happiness, forgetting my own. Now, every nail I drove, every paycheck I earned, was a step toward rebuilding me. She called often in those early days. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Long paragraphs about regret, about how she made a mistake. She said Daniel had moved on, that he'd found someone else, that karma had hit her hard. I read every word, and then deleted them one by one. There was no satisfaction in her suffering, just clarity. She had chosen this path. I was finally walking away. A month later, I received the divorce papers she'd filed. No apologies, no explanation, just signatures and silence. It was strange how something so small could carry so much weight. I signed them calmly and mailed them back. The man I had been, desperate, loyal, blind, died with that envelope. I moved into a small apartment downtown, nothing fancy but peaceful. I filled it with things that were mine, not ours, just mine. I started saving again, taking classes in project management, rediscovering the ambition I had buried to support her. And every night, when I saw my reflection in the window, I didn't see a broken man anymore. I saw someone who had survived betrayal without becoming bitter. Someone who had learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's growth. Love had once been my weakness. Now, it was my teacher. If you were in my place, would you forgive or walk away? Tell me in comments. Months passed, and life began to feel steady again. I woke up early, worked hard, and slept peacefully. No lies, no tension, no games. Then one afternoon, as I stopped by a cafe near my new job, I saw her name flash across my phone. Emily Porter. For a moment, I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered. Her voice was weak, almost trembling. Ryan, can we talk? I said nothing at first. She continued. Please, I just need a few minutes. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her that evening. Part of me wanted to see how far she'd fallen. The other part just wanted closure. When she walked into that cafe, I barely recognized her. The confident woman I once knew was gone. Her hair was messy, her eyes tired, her clothes wrinkled. She looked like someone who'd aged 10 years in 6 months. She sat down, avoiding my eyes. I lost my job, she said softly. They found out about Daniel. HR called it a professional misconduct case. I didn't speak. She kept going, her voice breaking. He left me, Ryan, right after that. Said he didn't want the drama. A bitter smile crept across my face. The man she chose over me, the one who whispered lies into her ear, had thrown her away when things got real. Poetic justice, maybe, but I didn't enjoy it. Her downfall wasn't something to celebrate. It was simply the end of her own choices. She looked up at me, tears glistening in her eyes. I made a mistake, she whispered. I thought I wanted excitement, but all I got was emptiness. I let her words hang in the air. I remembered every night I waited for her, every shift I worked to pay her tuition, every lie she told without blinking. She had burned the bridge between us, and all that remained were ashes. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. She took a shaky breath. Because I miss you. Because I don't know who I am without you. That hit me, not because I wanted her back, but because it showed how little she had learned. She didn't miss me. She missed the man who carried her through life while she betrayed him. I stood up. Emily, I said, you didn't just lose me. You lost the version of yourself that was worth loving. Her tears finally fell, silent and heavy. I walked out without another word. For the first time, I didn't feel anger or pain. I felt peace. Revenge hadn't required cruelty. It had required patience. Watching her crumble under the weight of her own lies was enough. The world had a way of balancing itself. And this time, I didn't have to lift a finger. The night I walked out of that cafe, something inside me finally settled. The rage, the bitterness, the endless replaying of what she did, it all went quiet. I realized I wasn't carrying her anymore. For the first time in years, I felt light, free. Life moved forward in ways I never expected. My new job grew into a career I actually enjoyed. I met people who valued honesty, not image. I started running every morning, clearing my head with each mile. The man I'd been before, the one who measured love by sacrifice, was gone. In his place stood someone who had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes, you have to lose everything to find peace. Every now and then, I'd still get an email from Emily. Short, emotional, desperate. She said she couldn't find work, that her friends had turned on her, that she'd finally understood what real love was and how badly she'd destroyed it. I never replied, not out of cruelty, but because there was nothing left to say. She was a chapter I'd already closed, and I wasn't about to reopen it. One evening, I drove past the old neighborhood. The house we once shared looked the same from the outside, but to me, it felt like a ghost. I parked across the street and stared for a moment. I remembered our laughter, our promises, our dreams, and how easily one lie had burned it all down. Then I smiled. That place didn't represent loss anymore. It represented growth. It was where my old life ended and my real one began. I no longer needed revenge. I didn't need to watch her suffer or wish her pain. My victory was simple. I was happy, and she wasn't. I had rebuilt my world from the ashes she left behind. And in that rebuilding, I discovered that peace is the most powerful revenge of all. Now, when people ask me if I'd take her back, I just laugh. No, I tell them, because I finally understand what love isn't. Love isn't blind devotion. It isn't endless forgiveness. Love is honesty, effort, and respect. And when one person stops giving those, the relationship dies, no matter how much you give. That night, I looked out at the city lights and whispered to myself, it's over. Not with sadness, with pride. I had survived betrayal, heartbreak, and loss. And I didn't just survive, I won. This is how my wife betrayed me. Should I forgive or move on? Tell me in comments. If this story reminded you of your own strength, please like, share, and subscribe. Every story I tell is a voice for those who've loved, lost, and risen again.